Hi students, welcome to yet another session of my class. We are discussing a new poem, Ruins of a Great House by Derek Walcott. Let us discuss something about our poet, Derek Walcott. Yes, Derek Walcott is born on 1930. He is a West Indian poet and playwright. Yes, his nationality that he is a West Indian poet and playwright, and he won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1992. That is important for one mark question. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1992. He spends part of the year teaching at Boston University. Yes, he spends some time for teaching at Boston University. He is best known for his poetry, which dwells on colonialism, the identity and literature of the West Indians, and the differences between native and European cultures. Yes, most of his writings, especially his poems and other writings, mainly he is known for his poetry collections. And most of his poems dealt with the themes. First is colonialism. Second is the identity and literature of the West Indians. He belonged to that particular country. So he dealt with the identity and the literature of the Indians. And next theme is the differences between native and European cultures. That is the differences between two cultures. That is native people, their culture, and European cultures. As Walcott has remarked, his focus is upon issues like the choice of home or exile, self-realization, or spiritual betrayal of one's country, etc. As Walcott has remarked, as through his writings, he got fame, and his focus, he mainly focused upon issues like, which are the main issues he dealt with in his writings. His focus is upon issues like the choice of home or exile. Home or exile, one of the important characteristics, features of post-colonialism or diaspora. So the choice of home or exile. Then self-realization or spiritual betrayal of one's country. Then his poetry collection, first poetry collection, In a Green Night, Poems 1948 to 1960, and its publication was on 1962. So this is his first poetry collection titled In a Green Night, Poems 1948 to 1960. Please note that for 1 mark it is important. In a Green Night, Poems 1948 to 1960. It depicts the Caribbean landscape. Yes, the theme, the poem is setting in Caribbean landscape, or this particular poem is dealt with the Caribbean landscape. The next collection, Selected Poems, it is an expression of his personal alienation, straddling his European culture and the Caribbean folk culture. Yes. Then next collection is Selected Poems. Selected Poems is an expression of his personal alienation. Personal alienation, that is expression of his own experiences. That means his personal alienation straddling. Straddling in the sense means mixing up of his European culture and the Caribbean folk culture. That mixing up of two cultures, his own experiences, that is portrayed in another collection named Selected Poems. It is an expression of his personal alienation. Then another collection, that is Another Life. Another Life is an important book for 1 mark question. Another Life is a 1973 publication. It is an autobiographical poem of Derek Walcott. So it is important. Then the cultural divide between language and race forms the thematic concern of Sea Grapes. Sea Grapes, another collection, and the theme is the cultural divide between language and race. Then The Star Apple Kingdom, another collection. So he analyzes his position as a black writer in America, distanced from his beloved Caribbean homeland in The Fortunate Traveler. The Fortunate Traveler is another collection by Derek Walcott. In that particular poem, he analyzes his position as a black writer. Yes, he belonged to, I already told you, West Indian poet, that is his nationality West Indian. So he analyzes his position as a black writer in America, distanced from that he is now at present. Yes, he migrated to America from his homeland Caribbean. So he analyzes his position as a black writer in America, distanced from his beloved Caribbean homeland, and that is analyzed, that issue or his experiences or his notion is portrayed in this particular poem, that is The Fortunate Traveler, published in the year 1981. And Midsummer, another collection, is 1984 collection. Then, Walcott also has 30 plays and a collection of essays. Yes, along with this poetry collections, he wrote a number of plays. That is almost 30 plays he wrote in his lifetime, and a number of essays. That is a collection of essays. What the Twilight Says is a famous essay collection by Derek Walcott. That is What the Twilight Says, and its publication year is 1998. So this is about our poet Derek Walcott. I think all of you understand this. Its nationality is important for one mark question. It is a West Indian poet, and he analyzes his position as a black writer in America, that is distanced from his beloved homeland, Caribbean. So this issue or this experience is he portrayed in most of his poems. That is the topic of colonialism or the identity and literature of the West Indians and the differences between native and European cultures, etc. Then, what is this poem? That is Ruins of a Great House. Ruins of a Great House is one of Derek Walcott's early poems, written in the year 1953 to 1954, when he was a postgraduate student pursuing a diploma in education at the University of West Indies in Jamaica. That is the significance of this particular poem. This particular poem is one of his early poetry collections, written in the period 1953 to 1954. And yes, when he was a postgraduate student. Yes, he wrote this particular poem when he was a postgraduate student pursuing a diploma in education at the University of West Indies in Jamaica. It was the sight of the ruins of a house that inspired Walcott to write this poem. Yes, there is an incident behind the inspiration of writing this particular poem. That is the sight of the ruins of a house. Yes, he happened to see one damaged house, or it was the sight of the ruins of a house that inspired Walcott to write this particular poem, Ruins of a Great House. What is the meaning of the word ruin? Ruin means damaged or collapse or destruction. So, ruins of a great house is a damaged or the collapsed part of a great house. And the poem is set in the twilight. And what is the significance of our poem, or what is the significance of the title here? Here, great house in the sense. So the poem is set in the twilight of the British Empire, when the process of decolonization was going on in Africa and the Caribbean island. Not her, his own homeland is here considered as that great house. So This poem is set in the twilight of British Empire. Once this Caribbean island and Africa was the colony of Britishers. They were under the control of these Britishers. So, this particular poem is set in the twilight of the British Empire. That means, yes, this uh, Africa and Caribbean island was once the colony of Britishers, and at this moment, process of decolonization was, yes, is going on, was was going on in Africa and the Caribbean islands. So our poem is set in that particular period, that is set in the twilight of the British Empire, when the process of, that means this Africa and Caribbean island is uh, going to be free from the hands of these colonizer Britishers. So when that process of decolonization was going on in Africa at that time. It is a poem which has patriotic as well as humanistic overtones. Yes, this particular poem, it is a poem which has patriotic as well as humanistic overtones. Here, that great house represent what? His own homeland, that is Caribbean island and Africa. The ruins of a great house. From the title itself, we can understand that after the colonization, what has happened to this his own homeland? Ruins of a great house. That means the damaged or the ruins of a great house means that Caribbean island after the colonization. This Caribbean island and the Africa, they had lost its power, vigor, energy, wealth, everything they lost because they were under the control of these Britishers. And the Britishers exploited these people and also exploited everything, wealth, money, then ruined, damaged their cultural heritage, everything. So ruins of a great house here in the sense means that ruins of his own homeland. That is, the process of decolonization was going on in African Caribbean island at that time. So it is a poem which has patriotic as well as humanistic overtones. Walcott makes use of symbols and plethora of images. Plethora in the sense means overabundance. That is, enough images he used to foreground the unhappiness of the African population under the colonial yoke. Yes, here in this particular poem, he used a uh, number of symbols. That is, makes use of symbols and images to foreground or to express the unhappiness of that African population under the control of these Britishers, under the colonial yoke. At the same time, he foresees the wildfire of freedom in the embers of disappointment. At the same time, here, with the help of these symbols and images, he is trying to express the disappointment of that people. At the same time, he identifies the wild fire of freedom, that vigor and energy in their mind to get free from the hands of these Britishers. That wild fire of freedom in the embers of disappointment in the mind of all the people of Africa. And at that time they were passing through this disappointment. Within that, yes, he can identify their vigor, energy, and their enthusiasm to get free from the hands of this Britishers. He expresses his concern for negritude in his comparison of Africa to a great house in ruins. Yes, he expresses his concern for, here with the help of this particular poem, Derek Walcott, he is trying to express his concern for negritude. Negritude, what do you mean by this negritude? Negritude is a literary and ideological philosophy developed by Francophone African intellectuals. Yes, it's a group of intellectuals. It is a literary and ideological philosophy, And this philosophy was put forward by a group of African intellectuals that Francophone African intellectuals, writers, and politicians in France during the 1930s. That movement is called Negritude. Its initiators include this particular movement. It includes intellectuals like Aimé Césaire, Leopold Sedar Senghor, etc. These intellectuals are included in this particular movement. And Negritude intellectuals disapproved of French colonialism. Yes, they disapproved, this group of intellectuals, they disapproved of French colonialism and claimed that the best strategy to oppose it was to encourage a common racial identity for Black Africans worldwide. And they think that this group of intellectuals, these negritude writers, they think that the best strategy to oppose this discrimination or this colonialism was to encourage a common racial identity for Black Africans worldwide. And they included the Marxist ideas, and they favored it as part of this philosophy, that is negritude. And writers generally use a realistic style in their writings, these negritude writers. And the term negritude was meant to be provocative. That is the meaning, that is the definition here we can give to the word negritude. Negritude means it is a Black African, is a group of intellectual. They put forward a movement that is literary, philosophical, ideological philosophy. That's a group of African intellectuals. And this is so here he expresses his concern for negritude in his comparison of Africa. Here, with the help of this particular poem, he is trying to compare Africa to a great house in ruins. I already told you, ruins of a great house. The significance of the title is important. What is the meaning or the significance of this title? It is ruins of a great house. Here, great house in the sense means that Africa, after the colonization, what has happened to this Africa? They lost everything. So now it is in a state of ruin. So comparison of Africa to a great house in ruins. The great house here symbolizes the richness of the West Indian cultural past. Great house that represent their cultural heritage. Richness of the West Indian cultural past, their wealth, their um, color, beautiful vegetation, their beautiful days, etc. They lost everything, wealth, money, their culture, everything. So here the great house here symbolizes the richness of the West Indian cultural past. So the poet is sad that the long African day is over. Here in this particular poem, he is trying to express his grief because that beautiful, colorful, long African days that is over, and that winter and night will soon envelop their lives. And the light is now expanded, and only the ashes remain. That means, since this Africa or the West Indies, that is, it is located in the equatorial region. The summer season in West Indies is longer than the winter season. It is the peculiarity of this country. Yet the poet feels that winter, with its sense of gloom, despair, disillusionment, and unhappiness, is predominant. Normally, this winter season is associated with the despair, gloom, etc., sorrow, sadness, despair. So, yet the poet here, the poet feels that winter, with its sense of gloom, despair, disillusionment, and unhappiness, is predominant, but there is every indication that this feeling of discontent will trigger the spark of liberation. Even in the disappointment or despair or gloom, each and everyone has that innate energy or spark in their mind, that is to get free from the hands of these colonizers. That is liberation, freedom. That's why I told you it has its own patriotic feelings. That is both a patriotic and a humanistic poem. So this is the background of this particular poem, The Ruins of a Great House. I think all of you understand this session. There is a homework for you, and the homework is write a note on Derek Walcott and about the background of this particular poem. Write your homework and send back to me. Thank you. Have a nice day. See you again.